Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload, we'll be talking about the pattern overall and what to expect. So there could be a very interesting setup late October, starting mid-October, mid to late October, and just I can't really describe it in a few words. You'll just have to kind of watch the video to see what's coming. The best way I could describe it is a potential for a snowstorm, maybe an additional one, maybe two, and a lot of cold air intermixing with some very warm air. So a lot of contrast, a lot of extremes juxtaposing each other, creating a unpleasant or exciting pattern. Depends on what type of person you are. And overall, though, if you guys like this channel, I just want to quickly add that in before I get started. If you guys like this channel, consider subscribing, watch the video. Check out the other videos and see for yourself if it's worth it. And if you are a returning viewer, liking the video would be awesome. Otherwise, let's start talking about this crazy weather. So, a lot of times people, mention that sometimes, I say it's gonna be crazy and it doesn't appear to be crazy. Again, just because there's crazy weather doesn't mean that it will hit your location, especially. And I guess that's just something I wanted to point out, because that's fair enough to, assume that your location may be hit by it, but, I'll try my best to show you where this craziness will occur. Though really, a lot of the U.S. will get impacted by this time around. So let's start looking at the anomalies of the temperature. So this should tell a story, pretty good enough of a story all by itself. This is the European model midnight run of Saturday. So I will be uploading this at around 11, 12 o'clock in the morning Saturday. It's being recorded in the morning hours, wee morning hours. That's my sleep schedule for you. Notice that as we push this into tomorrow, Saturday, what you see is a lot of red colors, and what this is a temperature anomaly graph in terms of Fahrenheit. So if it reads blue, it's below average. If it's white, it's around average, and if it's red, it's above average. And what I want to, for people that are new kind of to the weather or any sort of that, reading these maps, a lot of times people, when they hear average, they think that most of the times we are average, and sometimes it's above or below. It's never the case. It's always a mixture of either above or below. You don't see many white colors on this map. It's either a light shading of blue, orange, red, or a darker shading. And the average forms from the swings of these temperatures. So while the average for September, let's say in Chicago, is like a 60 degrees, usually most days won't be 60. It will probably be a bit lower, a bit higher, averaging to 60. And that's just something I wanted to point out. Notice, as I said, it will be hot across some of these locations, 20, 30 degrees above average, sorry. And we do see a bit of chilly air moving into the northwest following this large system that spins out. This is mainly to do with, especially around the peaks right there, the snowfall that will fall with the rain, the snowfall that will fall from the storm, and that leads to a bit of cooling. Also, cloud cover leads to cooler air, and also the storm is pretty powerful this one Monday, Sunday, though it's nothing compared to what we could be seeing in the future. And that does bring in a bit of chilly air, though you could see it's pretty anemic, not much cold air behind it, and we generally stay in a pretty... This chair is more and more starting to sound like a donkey rather than a squeaking chair. Squeaking chair at this point. Into Tuesday and Wednesday, we see quite a bit of warm colors still prevail. We don't see that cool air, but this all quickly changes once we start seeing more precipitation unload from the west. And you can't really see it on this map, but I'll show you the precip in just a minute. The storm that occurs right here, the center of it stays across these locations, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and what this does is it spins up and eventually provides enough cold air for the next storm system to take advantage of. You can see a bit, it's not above average, but it's not cold, I would say. It's just chilly. But what that does is it creates this troughing pattern, and storms do sometimes like that under certain conditions. And in this case, the models are supporting that. You could see the cool air spills into the United States. While this isn't anything extreme, we quickly do start seeing some extreme weather once we notice, look at that. That right there is indicative of a large storm system, and I'll show you on a precip map. a huge storm system could be occurring across the Northeast. And this is very far out, so I'm not saying that there will be necessarily a storm across the Northeast. I'm just saying that the models are pointing at a large storm across the eastern United States. And that may change location, that may change strength, and it just may disappear. Notice, look at that. I mean, I told you, extremes on both sides. We start seeing very cold air behind a troughing pattern right there. You can see 20-30 degrees below average, and then right there across southern Canada, 20 to almost exactly the same, but on the other side of the magnitude scale. Notice the mountains and get downright bitter. And this pushes into the United States, and this is some pretty chilly air, 17 to 16 degrees below average. That, you know, for these locations here, that would bring the first frost or the second frost, depending if you've had them already. If you recall, we did have a period last week where we saw quite a bit of areas seeing the frost advisories, but usually not everyone sees that. It's kind of patchy. And I just want to show you, I do want to show you the precip in just a second, but in terms of the last mile run, say the midnight or the noon one on Friday, you could see we had that warm air, that big storm. That storm sat around there for a while, and while that did that, we still saw quite a bit of warmer air penetrate in, but you could see repeating trend where that cold air approaches and dives into the United States. And let's just go back one more model run. I just want to show you that the consistency is there, especially with the temperatures. The storm layout's a bit uncertain, but you can see the same trend. We see some very, very steep anomalies in terms of temperatures, and we'll have to see this refine itself. So let's look at the precipitation without further ado, and let's take a glance at this. I do not want to look at the ongoing storms, really. These stuff, the Clipper, the tropical storm, I will make another video about that tomorrow. But notice what we see is, what I want to drag attention to is this storm right here. Yes, rainy weather across the west, snow, it's significant impacts, but what this does afterwards is also equally as significant. So notice it develops this cold front, right? Nothing too powerful, some storms, gusty winds, heavy rainfall. Definitely, though, not a severe outbreak, it seems. What happens, though, aside from that, notice we do continued storms across the Northwest. The Northwest just sees waves and waves of these storms. Many of these low pressures die and sizzle out, but you can see there's a constant flow. Look at that guy. It's right there. It sneaks just to the north of our viewing area, and what it does right there is it's kind of sits around doing just about nothing, at least it seems. What this guy does is he kind of redirects the flow of the air for looking more of a northwestern flow. And when the conditions are set up right, if you recall, we were talking about this little storm that the models kind of disagreed in strength on. And what this little storm did determined how much cold air kind of it could drag behind. And you can see that this thing becomes pretty big with the European, and eventually dragging moisture from the ocean. This storm, with already quite a bit of chilly air coming in, you could see it around this time. I wouldn't say cold air, but definitely more of a colder flow. I just want to quickly jump back. You could see at that time frame, we do see already that moderate chill. So you could see this storm weak, but look what it does in the next hours. It just absolutely develops a beast of a system across the eastern United States. And while this is just an extreme, most likely, I don't think this will happen to such an extreme, but I mean, you could look at that. That is just a honking storm. And this becomes very strong, 983 millibars of low pressure. We have a full-fledged blizzard across the eastern side, western side of this, and really, some large metropolitan areas would get impacted by this. I won't go over the details, to be honest with you, because, the timing, because it's just so far out. It's far-fetched, and this will probably change all over. But I do fully expect some active precipitation, active weather at around this time frame next week. This isn't this Saturday, but next Saturday around the eastern United States. And you can see the exact details are undetermined, but we just see a honking storm. I mean, this thing is just a classic blizzard. These are ridiculous winds. That's just downright dangerous. What we also see is another guy up here dropped from the southwest of Canada into the northern United States, and this guy does also a fair good of its fireworks show. You can see that it's very unique shape, looped up in all sorts of aerobic figures, and what we see this storm do is kind of develop into a classic comma head-shaped storm, and this would probably bring blizzard conditions and snow if it were to form. But again, I know that this most likely would still change, and models tend to over-exaggerate in the long term. And I want to point that out, that I do acknowledge that, and I don't, I'm not going to be saying, guys in Minnesota, get ready, blizzard's on your way, you're screwed. No, I mean, this is very preliminary, and it's just something to watch for, because there's been many cases where this has shown like similar cases and never happened, but there's also been cases where it has happened. And notice this thing becomes a beast, and following those several storms, they just completely change the flow and drag in a huge high pressure. In terms of snowfall, especially from that first one, it could be very impressive. What we are confident in is I apologize about that noise right there. What we are confident in is the snow across southwestern Canada and the certain parts of the northwest. That will occur this weekend and kind of continue in the longer range. But notice that if that system were to occur, also notice a few showers and showery weather may be occurring across Minnesota and Wisconsin. So some isolated snow may be possible. But if that storm were to occur, I mean, you could see some pretty significant amounts, 19, 20 inches of snow. Definitely not out of the question. And then also, right there, also a pretty significant amount. So, I mean, while this is fun to look at, may not happen, but I do want to emphasize this is already October 20th at this time. Not unheard of to see snow at these levels. So definitely something that isn't record-breaking, but it's just interesting to see. You could see those higher mountain elevations. I always find myself just trying to find the highest amount. Generally, though, I would say 3 to 4 feet across the higher elevations. The lower you go, obviously, the lower amounts. But with the abundance of precipitation and initial lack of cool air, it may fall more as of a rain event. So that's definitely the case. Could be the case. Look at the GFS model. Let's quickly go over this model. This model is usually regarded pretty well. Let's go back to our zero. Notice very same characteristics across the United States, with the tropical storm across the south, the Clipper across Canada. Then we have that storm that is innocent but drags this little wave off of the northwest. Takes the storm. The GFS doesn't develop into this, doesn't develop this into a huge beast like the European does, which is probably more of a good thing, to be honest. But it does have its fair share of interesting things it does. You can see it develops a kind of a flow of precipitation of rain into the United States, quite a bit of snow across the mountains and even the lower elevations, even just the plains, Kansas, South Dakota, Nebraska. Sorry, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. And just really interesting to see what it does. Each one has its own little scenario, but you can see overall the trend is very active, and the snow amounts seem to be getting closer and closer into the United States. You can see the GFS just goes crazy across these locations, and it doesn't go crazy across the east. Well, my mouse went crazy. And GFS parallel, you can see also showing more but across southern Canada, but definitely does include snow across the United States, and does its fair share of dancing again with these storm systems. You can see the GFS parallel develops into this little guy that kind of is dragged by this bigger storm. A little bit more significant than the GFS, less significant than the European, but it does show. You can see a pretty large snowstorm right there developing, and a lot of interesting weather. You can see a lot of blues showing up, and the models tend to do this in the long term. It's just still fun and exciting to look at. Canadian model, just want to quickly go over this. I know this video is pushing it. This video is long. Notice that we are looking at very similar. We have that storm. The Canadian does have a different twist on it, pretty usual, but it does have still an active pattern, which is important. At least they're agreeing on that, and it does show a remarkable resemblance to the European with this storm, despite not agreeing with the earlier parts of the forecast. So interesting to see. Lots of activity, just that's the way to put it, and very cold air. If you were to look at the ensemble members, they all agree with some pretty chill air. I know I just need to make these videos shorter, but I just want to pack as much information in. Let's go to 18Z Friday. You can see the cold air is definitely there present, and most models agree on that. You can see the European by itself just includes ridiculously cold weather. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll stop talking at this point, and I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.